So for my project, I decided to pick the song of Sultans of Swing. It is from the band Dire Straits, and it was released in May of 1978. It was written by Mark Knopfler, and the song was written in the rock and blues rock genre of rock and roll. Singer/guitarist Mark Knopfler had written it in 1977. After ducking it into a desert pub one rainy night and witnessing a lousy jazz band, unentertained by the lack of both talent and punters, their lead singer finished the set with a mildly enthusiastic "Good night and thank you," and we were the Sultans of Swing. Dire Straits emerged during the post-punk era of the late 70s, and while their sound was minimalistic and stripped down, they owed a little to punk. If anything, the band was a direct outgrowth of the roots realism of the pub rock and when pub rock celebrated their good times. Led by the guitarist and vocalist Mark Knopfler, the group built their sound upon the laid-back blues rock of J.J. Cale, but they also had a jazz and country inflections throughout the piece, occasionally dipping into the epic song structures and progressive rock. The band, along with Eric Clapton, Phil Collins, and Steve Winwood, became one of the leaders of the group and self-consciously mature veteran rock rollers in the late 80s that designed their music to appeal to the aging baby boomers. Despite the band's international success, they couldn't sustain their stardom, waiting a full 6 years to deliver a follow-up to the Brother in Arms, by which their audience had shrunk significantly. Background: Sultans of Swing was initially recorded as a demo in 1977 and soon got to play at the BBC radio. After a bidding war amongst record labels ensued, the Dire Straits singled a deal with the Phonogon Records, who then re-recorded it for their Anopsis debut in 1978. Sultans of Swing was officially released internationally as a single in January of 1979. Subject is a jazz. Pause that. This subject is a jazz band that plays Creole music with horns blowing Dixie, not remotely like what Dire Straits play, nor do Dire Straits play it to intimidate them. The inspiration of this band came from witnessing a jazz band playing in the corner of a practically deserted pub in Deptford, South London. The Sultans of Swing was not a hit at first, despite the album's positive reception, and in their homeland, they couldn't crack the singles chart. But in America, where the album was released in October 1978, nothing was happening with it either. Not until 5 months later, when the American radio stations picked it up on tune. Warner Bros. Re-released it as a single by the time it clicked, in nearly 1978. Eventually, Sultans of Swing climbed all the way to number 4 in the US charts, and the UK label followed suit, rolling them to number 8. The Dire Straits album, meanwhile, benefited from the single success, rocketing them to number 2 in America and number 5 at home. The rhythm throughout the song could best be described as a duple, which means that the individual beats are paired into 2 and 4 groups. The overall tempo of the song is quite quick, as you feel like you are driving on the road or dancing at a club, as shown throughout the song at minute 1:25.
Check out Guitar George. He knows all the chords. Writing strictly rhythm, he doesn't want to make that cry or sing. If any old guitar is all he can afford.
Each beat can be described as a subdivision where some of the notes are divided to 2 and 4 and others are divided in 3, which mostly can be found when the guitar solo hits around minute 3. The sound. In 1978, an analog recording might have been at its peak and this recording certainly is a testament to its notion. Everything sounds completely real and unprocessed. The drums are dry and in your face without being too compressed, and the snare is very snappy. The vocal and rhythm guitars have just a touch of reverb to give them some space, but the lead guitar has a lot of slightly delayed verbiage and pushes it back to give it a nice mix, giving all the elements a nice front to back image. This song has a strong emphasis on the background guitar, as seen throughout the song, and the lead singer is always present with the band in the background, but there are no background singers. Despite the name of the song doesn't actually show any swing rhythm. The beat of the song doesn't stay in a very strophic way, except for the guitar solo part as shown at minute 3:17. It's just the band playing behind them, but it's very limited sweetening. But this song is a perfect example of how it can be just as effective as a song that's heavily produced and layered. The rhythm of the guitars are doubled and split left and right, and the lead guitar line in the chorus is doubled. But that's about it. Mark Knopfler distinguished himself with a clean lyrical tone and one that is less of an approach, building solos economically until the natural point was two cut loose, as evidenced as the Kodos of Sultans of Swing, and even better in his later song. Throughout the song, there are many musical elements that can be portrayed, and one of the most is the guitar solo near the end of the song. Let's talk about some others though. The range of the song is very narrow, as the voice and the guitar almost directly stay in the same form, as there are not that many examples of how the notes change from a wide range pitch to a small pitch in the song, except for the guitar solo when it changes rapidly. This can be shown at minute 46 seconds of the song. As seen, there isn't much range, it's mostly just straightforward. The mode of the song can be best described as a declaration of truly letting loose and becoming the sultans of swings, as they say, and becoming their own people with their own passions. The tone of the song makes the listener think about what they want to let go from their normal life and truly start enjoying the parts that make them happy, as shown at minute 1:56. As shown, they describe somebody having a daytime job making themselves okay, and truly declaring themselves not okay if they don't have one. This shows that they're let loose and they're there for a good time. The next musical element is the verb tense, and the verb tense in the song can be described as happening in the present, as they are living the lives they want to live in. They actually live in person, enjoying the nightclub that they are attending or being described in the song. And when they're describing themselves as the sultans of swing, they're saying that they're just having a good time and dancing with the people at the present of the song. In terms of motion, this specific song projects a conduct melody, which has a feeling of flow to it, as shown as at the beginning of the song at 30 seconds in. The motion is very clearly defined as flowing, and it does not range that much in pitch, as you can tell that it just goes with the flow. And the shape of this melody would best be described as a combination of the two ascending and descending. And as an example of ascending would be 21 seconds into the song. When it hits that pitch right there, you can clearly see how it is ascending in the note and the pitch. and when it's descending is at the end of the song near the guitar solo.
Yeah, the song turns to play Creole.
You can see as the notes go down in pitch. I would also describe this as a static song, as the same beat and instruments are played throughout the entirety of the song, with just having the singer and the backup guitar along with the band, but you cannot tell if there's a saxophone present or anything else. Alright. The harmonic structure begins with a typical downward motion from the Aeolian centre. This lends to the beginning a somewhat rootless and somewhat sad feel. Given the Aeolian style of motion, it is perhaps a little surprising that hitting the fourth chord, a dominant shape is used instead of the expected minor shape. This seems to indicate a potential run into a more goal-oriental, purposeful tonal territory. Indeed, we drop down from there to a tonal as opposed to a modal directional back down to an Aeolian centre. The contrast between the modal direction and the motion followed by the dominant chord shape and short tonal movement may suggest a turning to a slightly more optimistic territory, which in the song it does happen. But on the second time around, rather than falling to the minor centre, we press on the relative major centre and move into a confident tonal direction as followed 1-5-4. The song sounds more confident here. Perhaps surprisingly, instead of falling back to the major one, the song pauses for a while at the major tonal centre. Compared with the confident major territory, this sounds somewhat muted and is uncertain but an interesting other. Now in a more wonderfully economic move, the song reveals that without moving our position at all, the royal position has changed into finally back into the Aeolian centre. This is revealed by a distinctive repeated Aeolian ending with various Aeolian movement flourishes. The form of the song can best be described as a standard AABA, as it goes on the same continuum of how the song progresses throughout. In this example, the A can best be described as the progression and of the chords of the main melody, and the B can best be described as the new musical elements, such as the guitar solo. The song definitely changes pitch and sound, but keeps almost the same constant beat throughout and rarely repeats its lyrics. At minute 4:15, you can see this.
Right up to the microphone. Say they left till the time bell rings. Good night. Now it's time to go home.
As shown here, you can see the clear shift from the original A pattern to its B pattern. As in the guitar solo, we want to hear the different pitch and tone, so it starts off with the B pattern. Alright, done. The importance of this specific song was it became one of the most popular singles released in the rock world for the long time. By early 79, the single had gone to the top 10 on both sides of the Atlantic, and has had the album, whose unfussy aesthetic and timeless songcraft allied to a frontman who sounded like the stop-off point between J.J. Cale and Bob Dylan, led to sales of more than 7 million. Suddenly, Knopfler was being toasted as the greatest homegrown guitarist since Eric Clapton. And even Dylan came calling, enlisting Knopfler and Dire Straits drummer Pick Withers to play the Slow Train Coming. Dire Straits, of course, went on to become one of the most successful British bands of the 80s. By the time they hung up their guitar straps in 1992, they racked up sales of more than 120 million and leadered their mantelpiece with Grammys and Brits. Not only did this song pave the way for British bands to come and emerge, but this was one of the first British groups to gain a lot of traction overseas. With this song, it inspired a lot of rock musicians to follow along in suit and start playing more upbeat and fast-paced blues-styled rock music. why I picked this song. I picked this specific song because, in my opinion, I think it really connect with this piece, and it relates to many of my moods and feelings. This song is an upbeat story of how these guys went to go out of normality, of getting up on a 5 to 9 job, and really want to pursue their dream of creating music and just living in the moment. Throughout the song, they regard to the safe and secure job many people have, and they kind of disregard it and want to go their own path. This song reaches out to a lot of people my age, as it talks about people who just want to go out and let loose and have fun and live in the moment, without having too much emphasis on the future. This song is a great example of Dire Straits' style and technique, as they use these specific traits throughout their songs and their music. Thank you.